Hi guys. I just want to talk about something, and I guess I don't know. We'll call it the language of silence, okay? And it's funny because if you look at the anagram of silent, you have listen, and also you have two ears and one mouth. So this should tell people something, but they don't listen, okay? They don't remain silent, okay? So effectively put, silence is a language, okay? And it means to be present. Okay, so you're just being present with your presence, the aura that is you kind of thing, okay? And for example, you can talk to your dog all day and night. This is a prime example. And you can talk to your dog all day and night and blah, 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 this and blah, 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 that. And your dog will look at you funny. Your dog doesn't understand this, okay? This is Babylon. This is spelling. This is a spell, okay? And they call it a language, a land gauge, a gauge on the land, okay? And so basically put, it's you look at spell and it's a curse. So everybody's using spelling and everybody's using cursive writing. Maybe they'll give you a death sentence. They'll use the stroke of a pen, right? To put you in a pen, right? Pigs are put in a pen, so it's all no different, right? So anyhow, I don't want to get too deep in that, But needless to say, being present, like a prime example is when you're training dogs, you don't need to be talking to your dogs. That's where the voice and the hand commands come in, and it's the same with the eyes, okay? And effectively put, like, for example, like my buddy had his dog out. She had just met my little dog, and of course she's a puppy, and she just comes barreling at my dog, and my dog, well, she started snarling at her, okay? And well, at first, sorry, let me back up here. She wasn't snarling at first, but then when my buddy intervened and had started speaking, and the tone of his voice to retract his dog away from my dog, well, that scared my dog, okay? Is where now, had he just silently walked up and pulled his dog back with the leash and not said a word, there wouldn't have been any problem. So the minute he said, all right, come here, girl, and well, then my dog thought something was wrong, okay? So silence speaks louder than words, and it's about being in the presence. Like, for example, my dog talks to me all the time without talking to me. You follow me? Like, she'll look at me, she'll give me a look like, I'm hungry, or a look like I want to go for a walk, and isn't it funny with dogs? Here's how dogs are tuned in and people got tuned out, okay? For example, your dog will know when you're coming home, even if you're late after work and you usually get home at that time, your dog will be at the door, will go to the door like 2 minutes before you get there, or a minute before you get there. How does your dog know this? Okay, well, your dog knows because you and your dog are in tune. Okay, and so therefore you don't have to speak. Okay, and you look at words and you take the S and put it on the front, you have swords. So people used to run around and kill each other with swords, and now people are killing each other with words. It's a war of words. It's a message. It's the age of the mess, and everybody's demonstrating with these words. This is not good. This is a spell, and that's why they call it spelling. Okay, just take the G out. Spell in a spell. Okay, so anyhow, people, getting back to the presence of everything. You only when you look within and the eyes are closed can one truly see. So it'll tell you things like, hey, this is wrong with your life, or this is good with your life, and so on and so forth. So by acknowledging these things, you're allowing the universe or the multiverse to flow, okay? And when your eyes are unclosed, I know this is hard to grasp, but you become unlimited, okay, people? No limits. The sky's the limit. That's not even the limit, okay? So effectively put, people, being presence is what people want, like quite often I'll sit back and I believe it or not, I'm not much of a talker. I'll talk for these videos. That's only for you guys, but like for the most part, I can't have normal conversations with people, and the conversations that they are having, I just sit there and I listen. Okay, I don't intervene, I don't interject, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm right, or you're right, I'm wrong. It's always a war of words, and it's a discussion, and dis was a word for the lord of the creator of the underworld. Okay, so maybe you have dis-ease, discussions, discussions, right? So by being silent and staying out of the words, and silence is the language, people, and you can communicate with silence. Like, I just have to look at my dog and I can nod my head or bat my eyes up and she'll sit for me. I don't have to talk to her. There's an energetic language going on here, okay? Not a bad frequency of words. It's a natural, because it's silence, okay? And silent is listen, and that's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I cannot emphasize this enough, right? And people are just babbling on and on, Babylon, right? Babylon, right? Babylon. So anyhow, people, now getting back to something else, you people might think I'm crazy, but occasionally I meet people where I can have a complete conversation with them without saying 1 word to them. And you people are going to say, Mark, you're full of fucking shit. You're full of cat shit. And no, I'm not making this up. And I'll give you an example. I was sitting at a bar. This was a few years ago, but I've had numerous instances like this where you're about to say something and somebody will finish it, or you're not even having a conversation, like you're having a complete conversation, but not 1 word has been said. And this girl was sitting across the bar from me. I wasn't drunk or anything. You know, I was just having a couple of beers, whatever I was doing. And she was there with a friend, and we kept looking at each other, and like we weren't turning our heads, or, you know, we just kept looking at each other. And so a couple of minutes had went by, and I don't know, maybe 5 minutes or something like that. And I thought, now I'm going to go talk to this girl. And it's not because I wanted to pick her up. There was nothing like that, right? We just had a complete conversation. The 2 of us were on the same frequency without words, and we completely knew who each other was. And it was a very peaceful moment, okay? Not often do I encounter this with people, and with her I did. And so I go up to her and I'm like, hey, and the music was kind of a little loud, but not too loud. And she's like, hey, and so I started talking to her, and 2 seconds later, her friend starts intervening, and she's like, oh, why are you talking to this guy? You know, he's a loser, and, you know, like he's just trying to pick you up. And she just looks at her friend and she says, no, it's nothing like that at all. And her friend looks at her all confused and perplexed, and she says, can I just have a moment? She says, I'll be fine. Just leave us. She says, I'll be fine. So her friend leaves, and so anyhow, and I'm not making anything out of anything. And then she looks at me and she says, you know, it's the weirdest thing. And I said, what's that? And then she says, I don't know. I don't want to tell you. It's going to sound crazy. And I says, well, you can tell me. And like she wanted to, she was hesitant, and she goes, no, I can't. And I says, well, I know what you want to tell me. And she says, you do? I says, of course. I says, I know the same things you know. And she looks at me and she says, really? I says, of course. I says, that's why we're on the same tune. We're on the same frequency. I didn't say that part, but we're on the same tune here. And she goes, and what's that? And I says, well, you wanted to tell me that you feel like you've known me for all my life. And I says, and I've known you for all my life. And she looked at me and she goes, wow. She says, that's insane. And I said, why? She says, because you're right. And I said, it's not insane. I says, that's what happens. I says, when people don't talk, I said, and I says, that's that. And I says, so when you're on the same frequency, I says, we can talk to each other across the room, across the world. You follow me, people? How is it that a mother will know that something happened to her daughter in Thailand or Mexico and she's here in Canada the minute or the second before it happens? The same with your getting back to dogs. How do they know a house is going to collapse or something's on fire? Or they're there to serve us, and we have to serve them, and that's why they're man's best friend, okay? So are people. People can be man's best friend too, but that's you know, a total different ball of wax. So needless to say, I was even talking with another buddy that I bumped with out west, and it was the same thing. I hadn't spoken to him yet. He'd come up to me and he's like, you want to hear something real crazy? And I said, yeah, man. And he says, I can't tell you. And I says, you can tell me, man. And he goes, no. He says, you're going to think I'm crazy. And I says, no, man. I says, I won't think you're crazy. I says, actually, I says, I know you're not crazy. And he looked at me and he goes, well, I says, you were going to tell me that you feel like you've known me all your life. And he looked at me and he goes, holy fuck. He says, yeah. He says, you're right. That's fucked up. I said, I know, man. I says, you and I are on that same frequency. You follow me, people? So anyhow, silence is golden. Talking, you're a tall king, but then you're thinking and you're very thin. You're a thin king, so you're not as king. Okay, people? You follow me? So this is why you must remain present, okay? And present, all you have to do is, like, you could be the husband arguing with your wife all day, or she's arguing with you. It's going back and forth. And meanwhile, what does that lead to? Nothing. But if you remain quiet, all of a sudden the other one could argue at you, and one point they'll start laughing and realizing how preposterous the frequency of arguing is, and then they'll start laughing and they'll start smiling because now you two are on the same page, which is silence. Silence is golden, people. Talk is cheap, actions speak louder than words, and silence is golden. And if you take the L out of gold, you have God. You could also add another O and you have good, okay? So may God be by ye, may the ether be by ye. I love you all. I hope this video helps, okay? I'm not getting into this spiritual shit here. I don't even call it spiritual shit. I just call it remain within you, and only when the eyes are closed can the mind truly see. And at the same time, it's no different. You don't have to converse with your dog or dogs, and all you have to do is walk out and snap a finger. They'll come to you. You follow me, people? You don't have to talk. You just have to look at them and flick your eyes, and they will come, okay? And this is how things will come to you, okay? So, you know, you also have to be mindful of what's coming to you. But that's another talk show. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because all is mind and mind over matter. So if you don't mind, it doesn't matter. And if you want to create something, well, then you think about something and you put that motion into effect. That's called physics, right? I guess. Anyhow, so, you know, I just want to say something. You're all basically the ether. You're cosmic stardust. You're breathers. We breathe in the ether. We eat her. The weather, we eat her. That's why we live together, clothed in ether. Okay, people. And so, you know, simply put, I'm going to leave it at this. I hope this video finds you well. Till then, keep your heads up, your sticks on the ice. Love you all. Namaste. Peace.